Yesterday we got our first little look at RWBY Volume 8, a brief 30-second clip from one of the earlier episodes in the volume that doesn't really showcase anything too plot relevant, but the things that we do see could be very significant for how Volume 8 is going to play out. I will leave a link in the description below to the Rooster Teeth channel where you can go there, watch the 30-second clip, and I will say for those who want to go into Volume 8 completely unspoiled, you have been warned. Now, this clip, it showcases Yang, Jean, Ren, and Oscar as they seem to be raiding a Mantle warehouse, stealing a couple bikes, and joyriding down the streets of Mantle. Now, Yang is obviously pretty happy about this. She lost Bumblebee at the end of Volume 6, and being able to be back on a bike again must be pretty enjoyable. And she seems to take it a bit far by going off a ramp, riding across the side of a building before landing back on the street, and poor Oscar, who's joyriding along with her, ends up getting a face full of her hair, and he's not too pleased with the entire situation. Though Jean seems actually pretty impressed by what Yang is doing, though he's not accustomed to riding the bikes either. So this clip doesn't really showcase much in the way of actual plot, however it does show us the state of Mantle as of the beginning of Volume 8, and also indicates some of the states of the actual teams between Team Alpine and Team RWBY as Volume 8 is starting as well. When this clip was previewed, there was also a bit of discussion about underlying themes of Volume 8, and said by Barbara Dunkelman, the voice actress for Yang Xiaolong, is that there's going to be an underlying theme of distrust in Volume 8. Not really surprising given the entire events that took place in Volume 7, but alongside this clip, it kind of indicates to me that there might be some distrust between Teams RWBY and Alpine, in particular with Yang and Nora, because it seems kind of odd that all of Team Alpine is there minus Nora, and that it's Yang who's accompanying them rather than, you know, the rest of Team RWBY. Everyone is likely splitting up and doing their own thing with everything that's going on. They're kind of having to go undercover incognito into Mantle, with Salem taking over and everything that's going to happen with all of that, but it seems to indicate that maybe Yang is having some distrust or not really believing in RWBY's leadership as much as she used to. In Volume 7, she was questioning RWBY the most out of the rest of her team about the decision that she made to lie to Ironwood. She was the one most concerned about that, whereas Blake and Weiss seemed to be more in line with her decision, or at least supporting her decision, whereas Yang was more questioning it. One thing that Barbara added to the underlying theme of distrust was that even if you love someone and care for them, you don't exactly have to trust or follow everything that they say. I believe with her being the voice actress for Yang Xiaolong kind of implies that Yang might not be trusting RWBY's orders or believing in her orders as much. She was very proud in the early volumes that RWBY was taking charge and becoming a leader, but in Volume 7, she's had more and more pressure put on her to be a good leader, and you have to remember that RWBY is still 2 years younger than the rest of her team. She doesn't have as much real-world experience, and being 17 versus 19 is a huge difference when it comes to the mental state and being able to make well-informed decisions. So in RWBY's case, she is doing a pretty good job for the most part, though there are a couple decisions that I do question when it comes to her overall judgment, but that's intentional. She is still learning. She is still trying to come to terms with everything that she's learned, the truth of the world. She stood up to Salem, which didn't go very well. She's still very much a child at heart. And as I said, that's completely fine. We are watching her grow from just being a 15-year-old girl at the beginning of the series to being a leader of a team involved in the inner circle and the inner workings of the world, fighting against the greater evil of the world, etc. She has grown so much throughout the series and still has a very long way to go. And I think there's going to be some conflict between Yang and RWBY and possibly the rest of their team in Volume 8. That maybe Yang isn't trusting RWBY's orders as much or her decisions, etc. and that's going to cause a little bit of conflict. I don't think Team RWBY is going to be breaking up, but they might just be separating for certain missions at various times. But when it comes to Nora, on the other hand, that's going to be a bit more tricky because she is in love with Ren, and that is going to cause some rifts between her and the rest of her team. We saw in Volume 7 how Ren was acting a bit strange, that he was very confrontational, aggressive, and also following Ironwood's orders when everyone else was questioning them. So he was acting quite a bit strange, and Nora was not understanding what was going on with him. She was trying to get through to him and was getting increasingly frustrated. I'm guessing that's not going to go away just because Salem showed up. It's going to cause other problems, but that agitation that they were feeling and that tension between them is still going to remain. And I think that's kind of why Nora isn't with Team Alpine at that point. She works best with the team that she's most comfortable working with, the team that she's fought alongside for the past 2 years, and yet splitting off to go in a different direction, go on a different mission, whatever else is going on with the rest of Team RWBY and Nora, Crow, etc. Nora is tagging along with them rather than the rest of her team. That to me says that there was some conflict that may have happened in the first couple episodes of the volume, or possibly between Volume 7 and 8. We don't know if it's going to start off immediately after Volume 7, and I'm kind of leaning towards probably not, as, well, what this preview showed us, but still, we'll see what ends up happening between Nora and the rest of Team Alpine and Yang and the rest of Team RWBY, but I think there's going to be some distrust and conflict between them. Hopefully it'll be resolved by the end of Volume 8, Volume 9, and we'll see how things develop, but moving forward, that's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. Now, as I mentioned about there going to be a bit of a gap between Volume 7 and 8, it's not going to be anything like weeks or months, it'll probably be a matter of hours or days. During this preview, we saw the state of Mantle, as Yang, Jean, Ren, and Oscar were seemingly sneaking into Mantle to steal motorbikes from a warehouse. So Mantle seems pretty much abandoned. When they were riding down the street, there was not a single other person there. And when they were raiding this place, I'm honestly not sure if raiding is the right word, but it seemed like everything was abandoned, that they were able to just walk in and take whatever they needed. Mantle itself was seemingly undamaged. It hadn't been burned to the ground. It didn't seem like there was a large-scale battle that was taking place between Salem and her Grimm and the army of Atlas. Because, let's be real here, if that giant battle did take place, Mantle would definitely be caught in the crossfire and there would be a lot of damage done to them. Panic would be ensuing, and the Grimm that are on the ground, not necessarily the ones that came with Salem, the ones that are all flying, but any other Megaliaths or Sabers that are in the area would be swarming Mantle, and, well, the army would be too preoccupied to protect them, so Mantle would be in a lot of trouble. Now, at the end of Volume 7, a majority of the population of Mantle was already being evacuated to Atlas. We don't exactly know if that evacuation was completely successful, that everyone from Mantle was brought all the way to Atlas by the end of Volume 7, by the time that Salem attacked, but it certainly seems that that's the way it is now. When Salem showed up with her entire army, obviously Ironwood's army was at the ready still, but there was no actual military leader. Ironwood was at the vault under Atlas Academy, and his mental state isn't something I would actually call stable right now. Winter was down for the count, the Aesops are down for the count, and so the military itself is likely without solid leadership. So when a giant army shows up and starts attacking them, if that's exactly what Salem did, she probably called for their surrender immediately, unless they all want to die, because frankly, there's no way that the military itself could take out that whale. I have ideas on how they could be helpful, but showing up immediately like that, there wouldn't be a way for them to develop a strategy, and that was certainly something that the regular foot soldiers, just being in one of those airships, would be ready for. So likely, if a battle did ensue, it didn't last very long, and Atlas likely surrendered. Salem probably has dominion over Atlas right now, and it's up to Team RWBY, Team Alpine, Crow, Maria, Pietro, and Penny to sneak into Mantle, sneak into Atlas, and try to rescue them, do something to try to stop Salem's rule over it, at least get the Staff of Creation and possibly the Lamp of Knowledge away from her. But still, I don't think we're actually going to start off the volume with a huge climactic battle. There will likely be some sort of action, as it seems most volumes start off that way, that there is a fight of some sort, so we're likely going to see a conflict between Salem and the army, but not the giant battle that will ensue. That will likely be at the end of Volume 8. So that's kind of the gist of what I'm getting from this preview. It's only 30 seconds long, and yet there is quite a bit that we can kind of make assumptions about from this, but I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think of this preview? How the animation quality seems to have improved? What do you think of the state of Mantle as Volume 8 is starting, and the state of both teams RWBY and Alpine? Do you think that Distrust is going to play a larger role in both of these teams, as well as, you know, the trust that Ironwood has in the rest of his army, the trust that he has in the Aesops, and the trust that everyone is going to have for Ironwood moving forward, depending on how much longer Ironwood has to live, because with the path that he's on now, it's not really looking too promising for him. So make sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little breakdown of a 30-second clip. Seems I can ramble quite a bit, even over just 30 seconds, but hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to subscribe, join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. There's plenty more RWBY content coming down the line, so hopefully you guys will look forward to that. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, join our Discord server, link also in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.